Chapter 53 of Lorna Doone. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Michelle Harris. Lorna Doone by R.D. Blackmore. Chapter 53. Jeremy Finds Out Something. "You know, my son," said Jeremy Stickles, with a good pull at his pipe, because he was going to talk so much, and putting his legs well along the settle, "it has been my duty, for a wearier time than I care to think of, and which would have been unbearable except for your great kindness, to search this neighborhood narrowly, and learn everything about everybody. Now the neighborhood itself is queer, and people have different ways of thinking from what we are used to in London. For instance now, among your folk, when any piece of news is told, or any man's conduct spoken of, the very first question that arises in your mind is this: Was this action kind and good? Long after that, you say to yourselves, Does the law enjoin or forbid this thing? Now here is your fundamental error, for among all truly civilized people, the foremost of all questions is, How stands the law herein? And if the law approve, no need for any further questioning. That this is so, you may take my word, for I know the law pretty thoroughly. Very well, I need not say any more about that, for I have shown that you are all quite wrong. I only speak of this savage tendency, because it explains so many things which have puzzled me among you, and most of all your kindness to men whom you never saw before, which is an utterly illegal thing. It also explains your toleration of these outlaw Doones so long. If your views of law had been correct, and law an element of your lives, these robbers could never have been indulged for so many years amongst you, but you must have abated the nuisance." "Now, Stickles," I cried, "this is too bad." He was delivering himself so grandly. "Why, you yourself have been amongst us, as the balance and sceptre and sword of law, for nigh upon a 12-month. And have you abated the nuisance, or even cared to do it, until they began to shoot at you?" "My son," he replied, "your argument is quite beside the purpose, and only tends to prove more clearly that which I have said of you. However, if you wish to hear my story, no more interruptions. I may not have a chance to tell you, perhaps for weeks, or I know not when, if once those yellows and reds arrive, and be blessed to them, the lubbers. Well, it may be 6 months ago, or it may be 7, at any rate a good while before that cursed frost began, the mere name of which sends a shiver down every bone of my body, when I was riding one afternoon from Dulverton to Watchet." "Dulverton to Watchet!" I cried. "Now what does that remind me of? I am sure I remember something." "Remember this, John, if anything, that another word from thee, and thou hast no more of mine. Well, I was a little weary perhaps, having been plagued at Dulverton with the grossness of the people. For they would tell me nothing at all about their fellow townsman, your worthy Uncle Huckaback, except that he was a God-fearing man, and they only wished I was like him. I blessed myself for a stupid fool, in thinking to have pumped them, for by this time I might have known that, through your western homeliness, every man in his own country is something more than a prophet. And I felt, of course, that I had done more harm than good by questioning, inasmuch as every soul in the place would run straightway and inform him that the king's man from the other side of the forest had been sifting out his ways and works." "Ah," I cried, for I could not help it, "you begin to understand at last that we are not quite such a set of oafs as you at first believed us." "I was riding on from Dulverton," he resumed with great severity, yet threatening me no more, which checked me more than 50 threats, "and it was late in the afternoon, and I was growing weary. The road, if road it could be called, turned suddenly down from the higher land to the very brink of the sea, and rounding a little jut of cliff, I met the roar of the breakers. My horse was scared, and leaped aside, for a northerly wind was piping, and driving hunks of foam across, as children scatter snowballs. But he only sank to his fetlocks in the dry sand, piled with popweed, and I tried to make him face the waves, and then I looked about me. Watchet Town was not to be seen, on account of a little foreland, a mile or more upon my course, and standing to the right of me. There was room enough below the cliffs (which are nothing there to yours, John) for horse and man to get along, although the tide was running high with a northerly gale to back it. But close at hand, and in the corner, drawn above the yellow sands and long eyebrows of rackweed, as snug a little house blinked on me as ever I saw, or wished to see. You know that I am not luxurious, neither in any way given to the common lusts of the flesh, John. My father never allowed his hair to grow a fourth part of an inch in length, and he was a thoroughly godly man, and I try to follow in his footsteps whenever I think about it. Nevertheless, I do assure you that my view of that little house, and the way the lights were twinkling, so different from the cold and darkness of the rolling sea, moved the ancient Adam in me, if he could be found to move. I love not a house with too many windows. Being out of house and doors some 3/4 of my time, when I get inside a house I like to feel the difference. Air and light are good for people who have any lack of them, and if a man once talks about them, 'tis enough to prove his need of them. But as you well know, John Ridd, the horse who has been at work all day, with the sunshine in his eyes, sleeps better in dark stables, and needs no moon to help him. Seeing therefore that this same inn had 4 windows, and no more, I thought to myself how snug it was, and how beautiful I could sleep there. And so I made the old horse draw a hand, which he was only too glad to do, and we clomb above the spring tide mark, and over a little piece of turf, and struck the door of the hostelry. Some one came and peeped at me through the lattice overhead, which was full of bull's eyes, and then the bolt was drawn back, and a woman met me very courteously. A dark and foreign looking woman, very hot of blood, I doubt, but not altogether a bad one. And she waited for me to speak first, which an Englishwoman would not have done. "Can I rest here for the night?" I asked, with a lift of my hat to her, for she was no provincial dame, who would stare at me for the courtesy. "My horse is weary from the sloughs, and myself but little better. Beside that, we both are famished." "Yes, sir, you can rest, and welcome. But of food I fear there is but little, unless of the common order. Our fishers would have drawn the nets, but the waves were violent. However, we have what you call it, I never can remember, it is so hard to say, the flesh of the hog salted." "Bacon!" said I, "what can be better? And 1/2 of eggs with it, and a quart of fresh drawn ale. You make me rage with hunger, madam. Is it cruelty or hospitality?" "Ah, good," she replied, with a merry smile, full of southern sunshine. "You are not of the men round here. You can think, and you can laugh." "And most of all I can eat, good madam. In that way I shall astonish you, even more than by my intellect." She laughed aloud, and swung her shoulders, as your natives cannot do, and then she called a little maid to lead my horse to stable. However, I preferred to see that matter done myself, and told her to send the little maid for the frying pan and the egg box. Whether it were my natural wit and elegance of manner, or whether it were my London freedom and knowledge of the world, or, which is perhaps the most probable because the least pleasing supposition, my ready and permanent appetite, and appreciation of garlic, I leave you to decide, John. But perhaps all 3 combined to recommend me to the graces of my charming hostess. When I say charming, I mean, of course, by manners and by intelligence, and most of all by cooking; for as regards external charms, most fleeting and fallacious, hers had ceased to cause distress, for I cannot say how many years. She said that it was the climate, for even upon that subject she requested my opinion, and I answered, "If there be a change, let madam blame the seasons." However, not to dwell too much upon our little pleasantries, for I always get on with these foreign women better than with your Maules and Pegs, I became, not inquisitive, but reasonably desirous to know, by what strange hap or hazard, a clever and a handsome woman, as she must have been some day, a woman moreover with great contempt for the rustic minds around her,